This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we've got really chilling news in light of the Charlie Kirk situation that's happened this year, and that is that the DOJ has declined to pursue charges against two people who threatened to kill Congressman Eric Swalwell. And I frame this in light of the Charlie Kirk situation because obviously the DOJ was willing to put forward any resources necessary to fight what they said was left-wing violence or violence against right-wing figures. But now we have very clear, obvious, and proven violence against a left-wing member of Congress, a Democratic member of Congress, and there aren't these federal resources being allocated toward anybody who has a D next to their name. And so in light of this disparity, what does this mean moving forward for a movement that has largely relied on violence to get what they want? I mean, we have January 6th to look at as a very clear testament to that, in light of any of it kind of being prevented by the folks in charge.
Yeah. So everyone, look, this is about as important a video as Brian and I have ever done. We've now done just over 300 videos, and this is a really important one. And so I want you to watch to the end because we're going to cover a lot of things here that are unpleasant, but they are important for you to hear, and they're important for you to be equipped with good information about. So Brian, look, the fact is that those of us who are standing up to Donald Trump, whether they are elected officials like the congressman, whether they are people like you, whether they are lawyers like me, we're really on our own. I mean, the fact is that the Department of Justice is not there to go after right-wing extremists. They are not there to go after people who may make threats against you or against me or against, any number of other people who are viewed as opposition figures. And that is in addition to the threats that we face at the hands of the Trump administration itself, right? So in addition to, what does it mean to be in the crosshairs of the Trump administration? What does it mean to have the President of the United States give a speech about me, for example, at the Department of Justice, or to target me in executive memorandum and orders? What does it mean for you to offer content that he clearly hates every single day, and people in the White House know who you are? Like, that's one set of risks, but everyone needs to recognize what Brian's talking about here is something that's actually much more dangerous, which is that right-wing vigilantes, right-wing, agitators, people who are going to take the law into their own hands, perhaps, for example, people who were pardoned by Donald Trump, who were involved in an insurrection in the nation's capital, who want to take violent retribution or want to engage in harassment or other unlawful behavior. I just don't think we can expect that federal law enforcement will do anything to protect us. I don't think that they will protect us proactively. I don't think they'll try to vindicate or solve any crimes that are committed. I mean, in some ways, Brian, look at the lies and the absolute disgraceful comments that were made when Speaker Pelosi's husband was assaulted in his house, assaulted, they tried to kill him. And what did Donald Trump do? He mocked it.
Right.
He spread false lies and information about it. What did we see when legislators in Minnesota were murdered in cold blood by what clearly is someone who was very disturbed and a right-wing, motivated by right-wing animus? They lied. They lied about it, and then they have kind of quietly omitted that from the list of violence that they care about.
By the way, so Mike Lee also mocked it. You had sitting U.S. senators who mocked it.
Yeah. I mean, and so I think we all need to be clear-eyed about the risks that people are running right now. And, that's not to say that we shouldn't speak out loudly and stand tall. I do, and Brian does, and many other people who are in the public eye do. But we also need to recognize that the failure of the Trump Justice Department and FBI to go after someone who is threatening a member of Congress, one of only 435 people who are elected by the citizens of this country to represent them in Congress. If they aren't going to protect Democratic members of Congress, who are they going to protect?
Well, I guess the bigger question then is this not a message that's being sent to people proactively who the Trump administration knows are going to be violent, knows are going to do their bidding? There are plenty of these right-wing paramilitary groups out there. We've seen them. They were in large part very active during January 6th. So how is this not a message to those people by saying, hey, when there are actionable threats against Democrats, we're very clearly not doing anything about it. When you have people who were locked up for committing violence on behalf of Donald Trump, we're going to give them pardons. And so how is that not a message to the next wave of people in advance of 2026 or in advance of any event, really, by saying that, hey, violence against the left is legal now?
Absolutely. I mean, look, Donald Trump is using and abusing the pardon power in so many different ways that it is sometimes hard to keep focused on the simplest way he is using it, which is to send exactly that message. I mean, he pardoned a bunch of people who not only broke into the nation's capital, not only tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, but some of whom assaulted police officers, some of whom tried to assault members of Congress. Like, he pardoned all of them. So what message did he send? The exact message he intended to send, which is that if you commit violence in the name of Donald Trump, if you do the thing that Donald Trump wants you to do, and it is violent, that it's a get out of jail free card.
Right.
And this is not a new message from him. And, I'd add one more thing, Brian. Look at the rationale he gave to pardoning George Santos. Now, in fairness, Congressman Santos is a fraud and not violent, as far as we know. So there's no violence there. But among the reasons he said he pardoned George Santos was because he voted Republican.
Right.
Right? I mean, like, if that's the criteria, Brian, what safety is there?
Right. Well, then I guess that raises the obvious question here, which is, what do those people do? What do the Eric Swalwells of the world do? What does the next person who's the victim of physical political violence at the hands of some right-winger do if Pam Bondi and Donald Trump aren't going to lift a finger, are broadcasting that they're not going to lift a finger to get some type of vindication?
Yeah. So look, this is why I asked people at the beginning to watch this video to the end, because this is the really important part. And by the way, hit the subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber to this channel, and hit the bell to make sure you're alerted, because Brian and I do this content in order to make sure you are kept informed. And this is really important stuff. It's really dangerous times for us in democracy. And it's really an informed citizenry is the start to the answer to this question, right? We all need to stay aware and informed. We need to be clear-eyed. We cannot live in a fantasy world. And unfortunately, there are still too many Democrats. There are still too many people on the left who want to believe that we are living in a normal judicial system. We are living in a normal criminal justice system, that when prosecutors charge people or don't charge people, it's being done on the merits, that if the FBI says there's no case, then there must be no case. If they say there is a case, there must be a case. And I'm telling you, we have to, for the sake of democracy, for the sake of people's safety, we have to stop giving this presumption of benefit of the doubt to this Department of Justice. Okay, this is Pam Bondi's Department of Justice. Every federal prosecutor who works at the Department of Justice right now works for Pam Bondi. And so when people say, oh, they're a career prosecutor, yeah, they're a career prosecutor who's been willing to stay in their position to work for Pam Bondi. If they're an FBI agent, they're willing to stay an FBI agent to work for Kash Patel. So be very skeptical. It doesn't mean that you can never believe what they say, but be skeptical to start with. The second thing is we need to really, really implore governors, mayors, state officials, towns, that they are going to have to fill in this gap. I mean, the fact is, you're in California, and I am sure that Gavin Newsom and the city authorities, whatever city you live in, they would take this seriously. And we've seen instances of that. And so we're going to have to, lean harder into federalism, into this idea that states and local governments are going to be the ones who are going to have to pick up a lot of this work.
And I should note for folks who are watching right now, Trump has already expressed his intention to go after Mark. And so I think the one small step that we can all take to help bolster his profile so that it makes it that much more difficult for them to be able to go after him is to support him publicly. And the best way to do that is to sign up for his news outlet. This way he's able to reach everybody beyond just relying on the social media platforms, a direct line from him to you in the event that he is targeted, or it goes even further than that. So I'm going to put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If you sign up for Democracy Docket, that's his way to be able to reach you directly. Mark,
and Brian, one of the things you said there that I want to hammer home is we also can't count on the legacy media. The legacy media has failed us in so many different ways in the pro-democracy movement. They fail us. They find new ways to fail almost every day. But I also don't have a whole lot of confidence based on how they have reported other stories that, that there would not be a certain element of take what the government says in good faith, cover the things that the FBI will confirm.
Right.
And so I think it's really important, whether it's Democracy Docket, whether it's Brian's YouTube channel or his Substack or his podcast, or for that matter, it's any number of other independent media. Like, we're going to have to build a left of center, pro-democracy media ecosystem. And Brian has been instrumental in that in a lot of different ways. But as much work as he puts into it or I put into it, it's only as strong as you all are willing to support it, by willing to sign up, whether it's for Democracy Docket or this channel or for other people's newsletters, whatever it is. So we really need you to lean into independent media, because legacy media is not going to do this work.
Mark, it's worth asking here. You'd mentioned a really smart point, and that is that the states have to step up and fill the gaps. And so I have two questions here. One is, are states going to have the resources available for, for example, if Eric Swalwell is publicly threatened and he knows that the federal government is not going to step in and charge the people responsible, do the states have the resources, or is there even standing for the states to be able to step in and prosecute the people that the federal government won't? And the second part of that question is, what happens in red states where even if they do have the ability, do have the resources, do have the standing to bring prosecutions against people, there's no political appetite to do so. And so in that instance where, let's say, there is, standing with the resources, do they only have to be in states with Democratic attorneys general or Democratic governors to be able to avail themselves of that option?
Yeah, no, you pointed to two big problems, which is why it's not an ideal solution, but it's the solution we have. The first is resources. The FBI has been historically the premier law enforcement agency of the United States for a reason. It has a lot of resources. It has access to a lot of data and information. It also can operate nationally, right? Can operate across jurisdictions. So if you have someone who's making threats in one place and another place, or they travel across state lines, right? The FBI and DOJ is everywhere. So they are a much more comprehensive solution with a lot more resources than a lot of state governments do, and certainly a lot of municipalities do. But, that just means that states are going to have to dedicate more resources to it. In terms of, red states versus blue states, we haven't yet, and I'm going to say this, I'm not being blindly optimistic, but we've not yet seen that state governments, including in red states, are unwilling to investigate crime in their own jurisdictions. They have reasons, they have local reasons to be concerned about unsolved crimes or unaddressed crimes in their jurisdictions. So I have a little more hope even in some red states. But also remember, there are also multiple layers of police and prosecutors. In a lot of places, prosecution is done not even at the state level, it's done at the county level, it's done at the city level, right? So in a lot of states, if you want to prosecute crime, you go to the county attorney or the local DA. And so, there are going to be a patchwork of this, which again is not going to be perfect. But hopefully, in those jurisdictions where it's closer to the people, like I said, there's more of just a tough on crime incentive that may take hold.
Well, look, again, I know I had mentioned this before, but I want to put a fine point on this. The reality is that in this world where you kind of present yourself as a public figure opposed to what this administration is doing, you make yourself a target. And so, again, the best way to be able to fight back against an administration that wants you to kind of operate in obscurity is to make sure you have as big profile as you can, so that if and when this administration goes after you, you're able to cause as much of a ruckus about it as you possibly can. So a small step that everybody can take to right now to help kind of secure the folks who are outspoken opponents of this administration is, for example, as it relates to Mark, to sign up for Democracy Docket. So again, I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If you're not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, that link is on the screen as well. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And let me say, by the way, that I try to use the Democracy Docket platform not just for me, but for anyone who is being who's being targeted by the Trump administration. I regularly speak out on Democracy Docket about what's happened to Congresswoman MacGyver in New Jersey, who is still under indictment for, frankly, just doing her damn job, and Donald Trump being pissed off. I've spoken up and used my platform for James Comey, who I have no love for because I believe he helped cost Hillary Clinton the election in 2016. I've used it obviously for Tish James, but I've also used it for John Bolton. And there are a lot of left of center platforms that are really walking away from the Bolton case. And I understand a lot of you don't like John Bolton. I don't like John Bolton, but Donald Trump's going after John Bolton because he was a critic of this administration. So, I try to use this platform not just for, narrow interest, but really to be consistently out there, trying to stand up for democracy.
And again, couldn't recommend enough that the need to support that platform. So that link is right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.